Everything changed the moment the call came in, not because of what was happening on the field, not because of a game-winning moment, but because somewhere away from the stadium lights, Shohei Ohtani had just been pulled into a moment that had nothing to do with baseball and everything to do with life itself, a moment that instantly broke through the usual rhythm of the Dodgers organization and replaced it with something far more personal, far more urgent, and far more human than anything that could ever be captured in a box score. At first, it didn't even look like anything unusual. Ohtani had been listed on what the team internally referred to as a father list designation, a quiet procedural term that usually passes without noise in a long MLB season filled with travel, roster adjustments, and personal time. But this time, the atmosphere around it felt different. There was a subtle shift in awareness inside the organization, as if people understood without saying it that this wasn't just a routine absence. Something meaningful was unfolding beyond the game. Then the internal message arrived. A call had come from the doctor. And immediately after that call, Shohei Ohtani left. No delay. No discussion. No hesitation. Just immediate movement away from baseball and towards something only he could define in that moment. Inside professional sports, decisions like this are rarely questioned openly, but they are always observed closely. Because when a player of Ohtani's discipline and structure moves without pause, it means the situation has already reached a level where everything else becomes secondary. And inside the Dodgers organization, that understanding spread instantly. Mamiko had gone into labor. Their second child was arriving. And just like that, everything else in the building shifted. There was no announcement over loudspeakers. No official press framing. No dramatic reaction at first. Instead, there was silence, followed by awareness, followed by the slow realization that one of the most consistent routines in baseball had just been interrupted by something far more important than competition. Dave Roberts was one of the first people informed through internal channels, and according to those close to the situation, his reaction was immediate in clarity, not emotion. There was no confusion about what needed to happen. No attempt to delay or evaluate. It was simply understood that Ohtani needed to be where he was needed most, and that baseball, for once, had to step aside. In the clubhouse, players began to sense the shift even before they were given full details. That is how information moves in environments like this. Not through announcements, but through tone. Conversations that were once relaxed became shorter. Warm-ups felt slightly more focused. Even the usual noise of preparation seemed to settle into something quieter, more attentive. And then the confirmation reached the team. Ohtani had gone to the hospital. Mamiko was in labor. And the second child was about to arrive. That sentence alone was enough to change the emotional temperature of the entire organization. Because in a sport defined by structure, this moment had none of it. No strategy. No matchup analysis. No competitive advantage. Just life unfolding in real time, pulling one of the most disciplined athletes in the world away from everything without hesitation. And that detail mattered more than anything else. Because Shohei Ohtani is not someone known for disruption. He is known for precision. Routine. Control. So when control is broken so cleanly, people pay attention. Inside the clubhouse, reactions were not loud. They were reflective. Players didn't treat it like breaking news. They treated it like something personal. Conversations softened. People spoke more slowly. Some simply nodded without saying much at all, as if the meaning of the moment didn't need explanation. One veteran reportedly described it as the first time that day when baseball truly felt secondary, not in theory, but in reality. Because no matter how intense the season is, there are moments that exist outside of it entirely. And this was one of them. As the internal updates continued, Dodgers leadership, including Dave Roberts, received more clarity. And while details remained private, the structure of what was happening became clear enough for everyone involved to understand the priority. Ohtani was not absent because of scheduling. He was not delayed because of logistics. He was away because something irreplaceable was happening in his personal life. Then came the update that brought relief. The child had been born safely. A second child. A baby boy. Inside the organization, that shift from uncertainty to confirmation changed everything again. The emotional pressure that had quietly built up throughout the day released instantly. What replaced it was relief, and in a professional environment where pressure is constant, relief is rare enough to feel noticeable. Players reacted differently now. Some smiled. Some nodded quietly. Some returned to conversations about baseball, but with a lighter tone. The weight of uncertainty had lifted, and what remained was simply acknowledgement of a life moment that mattered far beyond the game. But even as things settled, one detail continued to echo through internal conversations. The speed of Ohtani's reaction. He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He left immediately. And that became the first real insight into how deeply this moment mattered to him personally, beyond anything anyone could observe from the outside. Because in that reaction, teammates saw something familiar. The same clarity he shows on the field. The same decisiveness. The same absence of hesitation when action is required. Only this time, it wasn't baseball. It was family. And that is where the story shifted into something deeper than sport. Because now, the conversation inside the Dodgers organization was no longer just about what happened. It was about what it meant. And that question would continue into everything that followed next. The emotional tone inside the Dodgers organization slowly transitioned from immediate reaction to deeper reflection, not because the situation changed, but because the meaning of it began to settle in more clearly with time. The game schedule still existed, practices still continued, and preparation still moved forward, but underneath all of it, there was now a shared awareness that something significant had happened to one of their own, something that existed far outside the boundaries of baseball itself. Dave Roberts eventually addressed the situation in a careful and measured way when asked by reporters, choosing his words with a level of restraint that reflected both respect and understanding. He confirmed that internal communication had come quickly and clearly, that the call from medical staff had been received, and that once the situation was understood, there was no hesitation about what needed to happen next. Ohtani had left immediately, and that decision was treated internally as the only logical response. He did not add drama to the moment. He did not expand it into something larger than it needed to be. Instead, he framed it as what it was, a human decision made instantly in response to a family situation that mattered more than anything else happening in baseball at that time. And that simplicity carried weight. Because in professional sports, explanations are often complex, layered with strategy and implication. But this was not that kind of moment. It was direct. A call came. A player left. A child was born. And everything else followed naturally. Inside the clubhouse, players continued to process the moment in quieter ways throughout the day. Conversations drifted back and forth between baseball and life, but the presence of the earlier event never fully disappeared. It lingered in the background of everything, shaping tone, shaping perspective, even shaping how players interacted with each other. Some players spoke about family more than usual. Others reflected on their own experiences with fatherhood or milestones that had shifted their perspective on life and career. And even those who didn't speak much about it still seemed affected in subtle ways, as if the event had created a shared understanding that didn't require words. Because what they had witnessed, even indirectly, was a reminder that no matter how structured or disciplined a career may be, life always has moments that override everything else instantly. And Shohei Ohtani's response to that moment only reinforced how consistent he is, not just as an athlete, but as a person who acts with clarity when it matters most. There was no delay. No uncertainty. Only immediate action. And that trait, which is often celebrated in his baseball performance, became just as visible in his personal life. As the organization settled into the remainder of the day, the initial intensity of the news began to fade, but its impact did not. Instead, it transformed into something quieter, something more lasting. A reference point. A moment people would look back on later, not for statistics or headlines, but for what it revealed about the person at the center of it. Because in the end, the story was never just about a roster move or an absence from the lineup. It was about a call that changed the course of a day. A decision made instantly. A family growing in the middle of a season. And an athlete stepping away from everything without hesitation when life demanded it. And as the Dodgers organization moved forward from that moment, one understanding remained consistent across every conversation, every reflection, and every quiet acknowledgement shared behind closed doors. Baseball continues. But moments like this do not wait for baseball.